Okay, let's dive right in. If you've ever found yourself sitting with a bunch of interviews, focus group notes, or really any kind of text, you know the real challenge isn't just getting the data. Nope, it's figuring out what it all means. Today, we're going to break down exactly how you do that. So, you've done all the hard work, right? You've talked to people, you've listened, you've filled up notebooks. But now you're just staring at this mountain of words. And it can feel, well, completely overwhelming. It's a moment every single qualitative researcher has had. That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? This isn't just about sorting stuff into piles. It's about finding the hidden stories, the patterns, the real insights buried in there. In this explainer, we're going to lay out a map through this data maze so you can find the perfect path for you.
At the very heart of all qualitative analysis, it really boils down to one fundamental choice. How much structure are you bringing to the party? Are you showing up with a plan, looking for specific things you already expect to find? Or are you on a mission of pure, open-ended discovery? That one choice shapes your entire journey.
Think of it like this. You can be an architect, or you can be an explorer. The architect, well, they use what's called content analysis. They've got a blueprint before they even start building, a predefined structure. That's a deductive approach. But the explorer, they use grounded analysis. They head out into the data with an open mind and let the map, the theory, emerge from the landscape itself. And that's an inductive approach.
So with content analysis, you really are that architect with the blueprint. You start with a kind of checklist of codes and concepts, usually pulled from theories that already exist. Your job is to systematically scan your data, almost like a search engine, to see where and how often these ideas you've already defined pop up.
Grounded analysis, on the other hand, is pure exploration. You're not just testing someone else's theory, you are building your very own, right from the ground up. It's this constant cycle of reading your data, coding it, thinking about it, and then going back again, letting the big ideas emerge naturally.
Okay, so those are the two extremes, right? The super-structured architect and the totally free-roaming explorer. But the truth is, most researchers live somewhere in that sweet spot in the middle. They want a little bit of structure, sure, but they also want the freedom to discover things they never saw coming. Let's look at the flexible methods that do just that. And that brings us to the superstar of the middle ground, thematic analysis. It's probably the most popular method out there, and for good reason. It's incredibly versatile. The goal is simple. You're just looking for recurring themes and patterns in your data. But here's the magic. You can be an architect and come in with some themes already in mind, or you can be an explorer and discover them as you go. Or, and this is what most people do, you can do a little bit of both.
Now, building on that idea is a slightly more structured approach called template analysis. Think of it like creating a rough draft of your coding plan. First, you just get to know your data. Then you do some initial coding on a small piece of it, and from that, you build an initial template of themes. Then, as you go through the rest of your data, you tweak and refine that template. It's a really great way to have a starting structure that's still allowed to grow and change.
Okay, so you found your themes. That's fantastic, but you're not done yet. That's usually just step one. The next level of analysis is all about moving from describing what's in the data to explaining why it's there. It's about building and testing theories. And there are a few key ways to do this. First up is analytic induction. You start with one case, you come up with a mini theory, and then you see if it fits the next case and the next, tweaking your theory with each step. It's like building a key and trying it on a bunch of different locks. Then there's the opposite, deductive explanation building. You start with a theory someone else already made, your key is already built, and you just test if it unlocks your specific data. And finally, there's pattern matching. This is cool. A theory predicts a very specific, complex pattern. Your job is to look into your data and see if you can find that exact footprint. Now, you're probably thinking, do I really have to do all of this with a million highlighters and sticky notes? The answer is nope. There's a whole world of software out there designed to help. But is it always the best idea?
This software goes by the fancy acronym CAQDAS. But don't worry about the name. Its main job is to help you manage the whole process. Think of it like a super-powered digital filing cabinet. It lets you store all your data, tag little pieces of text with codes, write notes, and then, boom, instantly pull up every single quote related to a theme. But there's a real debate here. On the one hand, this software can make your work way faster and more organized. It's awesome for visualizing how all your ideas connect. On the other hand, some folks worry that chopping up text into little coded bits can make you lose the flow of the original story. You might lose context. So here's the key.
The software can manage your data, but it can't interpret your data. It's a powerful assistant, not a replacement for your brain.
All right, enough theory. Let's see how all this stuff actually plays out in the real world. We're going to look at a study that put leadership coaching on trial, and it's a perfect case study for how these big analytical decisions get made.
The researchers had a really clear goal. They wanted to know if all the money and time companies spend on coaching their leaders actually makes a difference. Does their behavior actually change? It's a classic, super practical research question.
And check this out, because this quote from their study just says it all. They didn't want to be locked into the strict rules of content analysis, but they also didn't want the total wide-open field of grounded theory. So they chose template analysis because it let them have the best of both worlds.
So here's how they did it, and it's pretty clever. They came to the data with some preset codes based on leadership theories that were already out there. That's their architect side. But they stayed open to finding brand new themes that just popped up in the interviews. That's their explorer side. Their method was a perfect hybrid.
Now here's the part I find really interesting. They thought about using software like NVivo and decided not to. Why? Well, because their dataset wasn't massive, and their manual hands-on process was already working great. This just hammers home a key point. Technology should serve the research, not the other way around. The software is a tool for organization, but the deep, thoughtful, interpretive work, that always comes from the researcher.
And that brings us to the single most important takeaway of this whole thing. There is no one best method for qualitative analysis. There just isn't. The right choice is always a strategic one. It's the method that perfectly fits your research question, your goals, and the unique human stories living inside your data.
So, think about your own work. The next time you're facing that beautiful, messy, wonderful maze of human stories, how will you enter? Will you be the architect with a blueprint in hand, ready to build something specific? Or will you be the explorer with a compass and an open map, ready to discover a whole new world? The choice is all yours.